Facepalm America. I'm Beowulf Rockland. FacepalmAmerica.com is where you can go for more information on the show, to listen to past episodes, and connect with us on social media. This is one of the final episodes of the year. I don't know if it's going to, I don't think it'll be the very last episode, but we're getting close here. The last few episodes of 2023, and what a year it has been. And it's not going out with a whimper. Oh, no. There are many interesting news stories to discuss. And as we do each week, we have Susanne Posel to discuss them with. She, of course, is the host of This Week Again, a compendium, a brilliant comedic compendium of the stories of the week that you, from a progressive perspective, should be paying attention to. Susanne, welcome back to Facepalm America. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's been a joy, and I am very grateful for the privilege. And I guess for me, this will be the last show, not only on yours, but I'm putting out my last show for the year on Sunday. So I guess see you next year.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that we'll be seeing each other again next week and next year, which is difficult to think about. But there's been
where does the time go?
I know, and there's so many things that are happening in the ongoing political saga of Donald Trump. Now, we talked about Colorado a week or two ago, and how Colorado has taken Donald Trump off the Republican primary ballot. And I think they're putting that on hold while it is reviewed, but that seems to be the direction that they're going in. Now we have found that the top right state in the nation, if you will, Maine, has also declared Trump ineligible for the 2024 primary. So this is becoming a thing, which is kind of cool.
Yes, that is the best thing.
Yes, I love I love hip new trends like taking Trump off the ballot because he's a traitor to the United States of America.
Or, insurrectionists off the ballot. Yeah. In general. I think this should be a trend for 2024. I love this.
Yeah, actually following the Constitution. It's a cool hip new thing. I really love it.
It's wonderful. I love this. Okay, so again, guys, listen, you can't claim, this is a Democrat thing. These are two Republicans and a Democrat state representatives who came to her name is just, I can see her face, but in my old age, I cannot remember her name. She was on CNN and MSNBC as last night, explaining this, that they came to her and she reviewed and she looked at the 14th Amendment. And here's the brilliant thing. See, my background is in paralegal studies. I went to school to be a paralegal. So I understand that it's not what happened, it's what you can prove. And when it comes to the law, words matter.
Yes.
In fact, the way in which a sentence is worded, where a comma is placed, all of that matters. Mm-hmm. And see, in the 14th Amendment, it doesn't say, like some Republicans have been screaming, that you have to be convicted of anything.
That's right.
It also doesn't say, as some Republicans are screaming as an excuse, that you have to be an officer of the government or anyone. If you are a person who engaged, gave comfort and aid to, you are ineligible for public office.
Right.
Period. So as a person, which I begrudgingly admit that Donald Trump is, he looks more like a potato, but
Well, if you watched my Facebook page today, in reaction to this, I was typing in various things about Maine and lobsters and Donald Trump, and I produced a hideous creature akin to a lobster version of sort of the Incredible Hulk, except based on Donald Trump. And so
the first thing that came to my mind was the seditious lobster.
Yes, Krabby the Magnificent is my appellation for him.
Krabby the insurrectionist.
I love that. I think that's fantastic. But yeah, I mean, yes, he has. I think he is a Homo sapien. Although if you ask him that, he would probably avoid that because he didn't know exactly what the word Homo sapien was, and since it has that first two syllables in it, he would probably be averse to that. Nevertheless, he does meet that basic qualification, and so the Constitution would seem, the 14th Amendment of it, to apply to him.
Yes, and so of course she was explaining, I am bound by the Constitution and the law to do this. She said it's not something it has nothing to do with what I want to do. I am bound by my office and by my oath to the Constitution and to the rule of law to do this, which is fantastic because, again, states' rights, right? I mean, the way back to Ronald Reagan having the cojones to go to where Mississippi burning happened and scream states' rights. Hey, look, we're just doing what we are allowed to do. And to kind of maybe segue into Nikki Haley because
yes, Nikki. Speaking of Nikki Haley,
God, Nikki
really,
Haley.
the states' rights goes back all the way to the Civil War. I mean,
absolutely.
And before the Civil, I mean, it is a fundamental problem. But basically, it is just cover for
the right to do what, Nikki? The right to do what?
Exactly. That is what I was thinking to myself this whole time. I think that caused. Okay, so let's set this up because this is something that we need to address too. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley declined Wednesday to say slavery was a cause of the Civil War, arguing instead that it came down to the role of government. Okay, quote, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to be run and the freedoms and what people could do and couldn't do. And of course, that involves the freedom to own other human beings. What people couldn't do. Yes, they can't own other people. And government interfering in their lives to make sure that they can't own other human beings, for God's sake. By the way, this is something that I'm sure somebody must have mentioned it, but she was the governor of South Carolina.
I want to talk about that.
Please,
yes, I do.
Please.
Yes. So she was the governor of South Carolina when they took down the rebel flag. Mm-hmm. And she has been using that. Hey, remember when I do. I remember how many calls it took. I remember how long in the news feed, the weeks it took for you to finally come to the conclusion that it looked really bad and you didn't want that. So you took it down.
Yeah.
So let's be honest here.
Yeah.
She could have, and the long version of this, and unfortunately we don't really hear the questioner's side because he was not on a mic,
right.
But you can read the subtitles to see what he was saying. She could have led with slavery, but what she did is she led with the argument that in the South you learn because right after the end of the Civil War, when Reconstruction was happening, the Daughters of the Confederacy got in and created curriculum that they still teach to this day.
Yeah.
Which argues what she said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because obviously she was just regurgitating what she learned in school.
Yes, she's absorbed that. She's absorbed that as having come to power and quote unquote maturity as a politician in the South, in South Carolina. She's just absorbed the kind of like bullshit arguments for states' rights and individual liberty and power that they were using to try and cover their ass 160 years ago at this point.
It's the same argument they use to this day. I want to be free to do what I want and when I want, and I just want the government to protect my freedoms. Yes. Yeah. But the freedom to do what? The freedom to do what? Because the argument, and her state was the first to secede. The argument was that she's governing. She wasn't alive back then, although she looks pretty damn close. But anyway,
You said it, not me.
I did. I did. I hated on another woman. I'm sorry for picking on her look. What they wanted to do was they wanted to enslave people because it made them money, and they were willing, and they did secede and fight over that argument. So any conversation, when you can't talk about individual freedoms, you can't talk about that unless first acknowledging that you are representing a group and have represented a state that argued to the point where you fought and killed 770,000 people total, died over this because you wanted to own people.
Yes.
Period.
That's right. And Nikki Haley, you may not have referred to slavery or wanted to talk about slavery in your initial response. And of course, she's backpedaling, madly at this point. You may not want to have wanted to use that phrase, but when your state seceded from the Union, and I went back and read the declaration that they made in 1860, 1861, they were sure talking about slavery.
It was the reason for the season.
Absolutely, yes. They were talking about They were talking about the Fugitive Slave Act, which they felt wasn't going to be supported. The one that they, through the Congress in the 1850s, imposed upon the rest of the
Jefferson Davis,
the country, just in order to have the ability to force other states and municipalities to return and track down and help them track down the slaves that had escaped their power
where we get the police.
Exactly, which is the basis of the police. And they were well aware of slavery. And it's only since they didn't have the power to do it anymore that they like to avoid that, because for the past 160 years or so it has become déclassé to discuss it in that way, and that's what she absorbed. But that's the reason why, and it is a very good reason. You have to understand that about Nikki Haley, and you have to understand that essentially about about 95% of the current Republican Party. You've got to get that this is the mentality with which they were inculcated.
Southern strategy,
exactly.
The Southern strategy. Exactly. They all know it. Yes. They all listen. You can listen to. He worked with Reagan. His name again is escaping me, but the Southern strategy explains how
Atwater.
to refer to things.
Lee Atwater, was that it?
Yes, thank you very much. Cool. And we have him on recording explaining that it is in the way you say things. You don't say this, you say that. You don't say don't say segregation, say states' rights. And states' rights for everything. She's arguing that Colorado and now Maine, I'm sure she will, that they are trying to keep someone who dutifully should be allowed as the people to vote whether or not, like Christy was saying, it should be the ballot box that decides, not a court. Well, la-di-da, but here we are with states' rights brought by Republicans in Maine and in Colorado. And now you're saying, no, we can't have states' rights, but then we can have states' rights to impose bans on abortion. But where is the freedom that Nikki Haley talked about in that extended clip? Where is the individual freedom to do what I want with my body, to be who I want to be? When you are saying that I can't play my daughter can't play in sports, or that my daughter isn't my daughter, that she can't be who she wants to be.
Yes.
That anytime there is a person, part of the LGBTQ community on screen, that it is pandering and it is offensive. You just see someone being their awesome selves, and you want to control that. Where is the individual freedom in that? Yes,
and that is very interesting, because it brings us to what I thought was a really positive story and a rare instance of me. And believe me, I do not have a lot of other good things to say about a Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine. And I know he used to be in the U.S. Senate also. But he actually vetoed a ban on gender-affirming care and trans athletes in girls' sports that the Republican state legislature had pushed through, and you got to admire that. I mean, you've got